Hi, I'm CJ Carnacchio, editor of the Oxford Leader, and every week I'll be bringing you all the news in the Oxford's oldest and only community newspaper, the Oxford Leader. Well, let's dive in and see what's in the news this week. It's been a while since Oxford Township experienced any sort of large-scale residential development, but the Bloomfield Hills-based Robertson Brothers is hoping to change that by gaining approval to construct 53 detached condominiums in the hills of Oxford, a 26.81-acre development located at M24 and Indian Lake Road. The proposal is set for public hearing and discussion at 7 p.m. Thursday, May 9th, Township Planning Commission meeting. Meetings take place on the second floor of the Oxford Veterans Memorial Civic Center at 28 North Washington. Robertson Brothers, which is in the final stages of purchasing the Hills of Oxford property, is proposing to build 46 ranch units that are each 1,636 square feet in size and 7 1.5-story units that are 1,944 square feet each. Combined with the existing 58 attached units that are spread out amongst 5 multiple-family buildings, the Hills of Oxford would consist of 111 attached and detached condos should this proposed expansion be approved by the township. That's a far cry from what was originally approved for the Hills of Oxford back in December of 2003. Originally, the development was going to consist of 16 multifamily buildings, each containing either 10 or 14 units, for a total of 204 attached condos. As the market for new homes, particularly new attached homes, tanked in southeast Michigan, the condo project was abandoned and no additional units were constructed. All 58 of the existing attached units are either occupied by owners or renters. Robertson Brothers is proposing to complete the condo development as a planned unit development with a much lower density, more than 45% less than the original plan, and leave 10.74 acres of net open space. These detached condos are designed to appeal to 2 growth markets in southeast Michigan. Those markets consist of folks in the 55 to 65 and 65 to 85 age ranges. Price ranges for the condos will be at or about $200,000. Well, dormant. That's the state in which the Oxford Downtown Development Authority could be placed for a few years in order to overcome its continuing tax revenue shortages and anticipated deficits. The only way you're going to solve this problem is to let this baby sit idle and let the cash flow come in naturally until they build some cash up, said Chuck Schneider, who owns multiple properties in the DDA district and used to serve on the authority's board of directors. That's the bottom line, he said. Schneider made this recommendation to the Oxford Village Council during a special meeting April 30th. During this period of dormancy, the DDA would continue to make its bond debt payments and pay the village for police and public works services in the downtown area, but it wouldn't generate any new expenditures or pay wages and benefits for any employees. This would allow the DDA to save up enough money to once again become an active and viable entity at some point in the future. Council spent most of the meeting discussing the DDA's financial situation and potential ways to handle it for the 2013-14 fiscal year, which begins July 1st. Council must approve a budget for the DDA and the village by the end of May. Council will hold a public hearing regarding its proposed 2013 village budget, including the DDA's budget, at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, May 14th. It will take place in the council chambers located at 22 West Burdick. As it stands right now, the DDA is projected to end the current fiscal year with a deficit of $8,936. The budget the DDA originally requested for the 2013-14 fiscal year showed a deficit of $76,509. Like many other government entities, the DDA has been forced to deal with declining tax revenues due to decreasing property values over the last few years. It was originally projected the DDA would receive $421,288 in property tax revenues for the 12-13 fiscal year. Unfortunately, it appears the DDA will end up with an estimated $379,542 in tax revenue, which is $41,746 less than anticipated for this year, based on budget worksheets submitted to the council. The 13-14 fiscal year isn't looking any better as the total taxable value of properties in the DDA district decreased by 3.9% this year, which is about $15,560. Add to that a projected $14,560 in unpaid delinquent taxes, and the DDA is looking at $30,000 less in revenue for next year. To deal with this declining revenue and not have a deficit, the DDA submitted 3 proposed budgets. In addition to various spending reductions, all 3 cut the amounts the DDA pays by varying degrees to the village and police for DPW services in the downtown area. The DDA currently annually pays the village $60,000 for police services and $85,000 for DPW services for a total of $145,000. The proposed budgets recommend cutting those payments by as little as $21,000 and as much as $86,000. Some council members weren't too keen on that idea, given any cuts it makes in those payments would affect the village budget, which is already very tight. Village President Tony Albenzi suggested the DDA look at either cutting the executive director's position to a part-time gig or eliminating it altogether. The director's position, held by Madonna Van Fossen, costs the DDA $68,310 annually. That includes $48,900 in wages and $19,410 in benefits. If the position were reduced to 29 hours a week, it would save the DDA $30,000. If it were reduced to 20 hours a week, it would save the DDA $41,000. If the position were simply eliminated, it would save the $68,000 for Van Fossen, plus all the money to run the DDA office. Councilman Elgin Nichols believes reducing Van Fossen's job to part-time isn't enough of a savings. He believes the only place to achieve the kind of savings the DDA needs is to eliminate the job entirely. But DDA Treasurer Ed Hunwick, while he understands the business sense of that perspective, did ask the council to consider the benefits Van Fossen gives to the DDA, such as her close ties with Oakland County government and the fact she's, quote, well-known and, quote, well-respected. He also noted how she's helped put Oxford, quote, on the map. He proposed that Van Fossen be given an opportunity to go out and sell the downtown more effectively and generate additional revenue to help the DDA survive. If she can't do that, then I say eliminate the position, Hunwick said. Well, it didn't transport them back to 1955, but it did get them to prom in style. Oxford High School senior Michael McCormick took his date, junior Sasha Rundy, to the prom May 4th in a 1981 DeLorean DMC-12, the iconic sports car featured in the Back to the Future film trilogy that starred Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. McCormick was originally planning to take a Corvette to prom, but he decided a DeLorean would be more fun. I've never heard of anyone going to prom in a DeLorean, he said. I figured I'd be one of the very few that have ever done it. The DeLorean DMC-12 is the only car produced by the now-defunct DeLorean Motor Company. It was manufactured in 1981, 1982, and featured gull-wing doors, fiberglass underbody, brushed stainless steel body panels, and a rear-mounted engine. It's unique, McCormick said. You never see them. They didn't make many of them. Approximately 9,200 DeLoreans were manufactured between 1981 and 1982, and as of 2007, it's believed that 6,500 of these cars are still in existence. The car is best known as the Time Machine in the Back to the Future franchise, a series of 3 science fiction action-adventure movies released between 1985 and 1990. Although McCormick's DeLorean lacks the ability to travel through the fourth dimension, his date still thought it was a cool ride. She was really surprised when I rolled up in a DeLorean because she's never seen one before. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Monique Maxim, the executive producer at OCTV Studio here in Oxford. Now, I want you to bring your family and especially those kids and join me on May 11th when we're going to have Police Officers Appreciation at the TV station. Now, kids can come in and use these handcuffs, dress up in these riot hats, and maybe put on a bulletproof vest. But the most important thing we're doing is raising money for living legends. So look for these shields around town for $1 and buy one, and join me on May 11th at the studio, 10 to 2.
And we're back. Well, for years, Raymond Blissett was a familiar sight at Oxford's Memorial Day observances in Centennial Park as he stood silently in the background, dressed in a wool Civil War uniform, no matter how hot it was. He always marched in the parade to the cemetery and fired his weapon into the air as part of the 21-gun salute to honor all those who took their last breath on a battlefield. Sadly, Blissett, who was born and raised in Orion, will not be taking part in this year's ceremony as he passed away on Friday, April 26th. He was 52 years old. Blissett was found dead while sitting atop his bulldozer in the American Aggregates/Levy Company gravel pit operation located near the intersection of Ray and North Oxford Roads. It was later determined he died of natural causes and just passed away peacefully while at work. He always said he'd like to go back in time and meet Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. Maybe now he's got his chance, said Jim Parkhurst, a longtime member of Oxford American Legion Post 108 and curator of its Military History Museum. Blissett participated in reenactments as both a Confederate and Union soldier for around 20 years. With his long hair, mustache, and beard, he certainly looked the part. Blissett first took an interest in reliving history during a Civil War reenactment at Frontier Town in Romeo. It was only after he started doing reenactments that Blissett discovered he had ancestors on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line during the war between the states. Blissett and his daughter, who dressed in the period clothing of a civilian, went all over to help bring history to life. They participated in reenactments in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Maryland. Between April and October, there was at least 1 or 2 a month, said his daughter Raylyn, who did it with him for 16 years, primarily because she got to hang out with her dad. When the 135th anniversaries of the battles of Antietam and Gettysburg were celebrated in 1997 and 1998, respectively, Blissett and Raylyn were there to relive those historic events and pay tributes to both sides. Blissett was planning to participate in Gettysburg's 150th anniversary next month. He'll still be there, said his wife, Renee. Blissett preferred to dress as a Confederate soldier, so most of the time he wore the gray uniform of a Southern rebel. Specifically, he was a first sergeant in the 12th South Carolina Infantry Regiment. Renee noted he was cremated with his Confederate cap. However, for Memorial Day in Oxford, he always wore the blue Union uniform of a first sergeant in the 4th Regiment, Michigan Volunteer Infantry, Company I, which consisted of men from Macomb and Wayne counties. Ray wore the Civil War uniform with respect, just like I wear my Army uniform from the Vietnam era, said Parkhurst, who noted Blissett was always happy to answer anyone's Civil War questions, particularly those from children. To me, it's very important to teach the young people, and Ray had the same idea, Parkhurst said. A lot of this stuff isn't taught in school. A stickler for authenticity, Blissett never washed his uniforms. Civil War soldiers didn't wash them when they were out in the field, so he never did either, said his wife Renee. His mother-in-law washed his pants one time, and he got so mad, she said. You can't be that guy who shows up to reenactments with clean, sparkling clothing every time, added his daughter, Raylyn. Well, the Addison Township Fire Department could throw an old-fashioned mortgage burning party, but it would probably receive a 911 call to extinguish the blaze. After 9 years of making payments, Fire Station No. 1, located at 4026 Forest Road in the village of Leonard, is officially paid off. Back in 2003, the township borrowed $850,000 from Oxford Bank to help build the 12,660 square foot station, which serves as the department's headquarters. That loan was combined with the $600,000 the department had already saved for a new facility. No new taxes were sought or levied for the project. Addison made its first loan payment in May 2004, and over the years, the department paid a total of $1,003,522 in principal and interest. The interest rate on the loan was 3.495%. To give us that money in the first place shows that we have a lot of support from the community, said Fire Chief Jerry Morawski. The department moved into the new station in August 2004. It replaced Leonard's existing Fire Station No. 1, which had only 1,400 square feet of space and was constructed in 1949. The new station provided things like a training area, adequate storage space for vehicles, and sleeping quarters so it could be manned 24 hours a day in order to provide advanced life support services to residents. Chief Morawski doesn't believe there will be any need to expand again for quite a while because there was a lot of good planning that went into this station. He gave former Fire Chief George Spencer credit for that. He thought about what we'll need 50 years from now and tried to accommodate that with the budget we had, Morawski said. Spencer did a pretty good job on that. Spencer resigned as chief in March 2009 after nearly 11 years of heading the Addison department. Morawski is glad Fire Station No. 1 is finally debt-free, so now the department can, quote, move on and catch up with some of our capital expenditures. The scheduled replacement of some vehicles has been neglected due to paying off the building, according to the chief, and they have 2 vehicles that need to be replaced. Morawski is looking to replace a 26-year-old tanker truck and an ambulance from 2005. Well, Bill Miller's heard an awful lot about Oxford's plan to celebrate its historical connection to the Lone Ranger with a movie event and parade, so he wanted to make sure the newspaper had a photo of the legendary masked lawman. I didn't know if he had a picture of him or not, said the 85-year-old Lake Orion resident. Miller stopped by the Leader office on Friday to donate a copy of the black and white Lone Ranger photo he got in 1937 when he was 10 years old. They were giving them away in packages of Silver Cup bread. I don't think they're even in business anymore, he said. Silver Cup bread, which was made by the Gordon Baking Company, sponsored the Lone Ranger radio show from November 1933 until 1939. They stopped making Silver Cup bread in the mid-1970s. This is the 80th anniversary of the Lone Ranger radio show, which began in January 1933 at WXYZ Radio in Detroit. Brace Beamer, who lived in Oxford for many years, was the voice of the Lone Ranger from 1941 to 1954. He portrayed the masked lawman in more than 2,000 broadcasts heard by over 80 million listeners on 129 radio stations nationwide. Instead of calling Oxford the Gravel City, they should have called it the Lone Ranger City, Miller said. He was referring to the fact that Oxford used to be known as the gravel capital of the world due to its extensive mining operations. As a boy growing up in Detroit, Miller was a big fan of the program, which followed the adventures of the Lone Ranger and Tonto, his Indian companion, as they fought villains, protected the innocent, and brought justice to America's Old West. I always did like cowboys, he said. When we were kids, me and my brother would sit around the radio. That's all you had then. It was a nice program. Miller, who moved to Lake Orion in 1967 and has owned and operated water softener sales and service for 60 years, can still recall Beamer's distinct sound. I liked his voice, he said. He had a real good voice for the show. Miller is glad to see the Lone Ranger characters returning to entertain a whole new generation and teach them respect for, quote, law and order. Disney's new Lone Ranger movie, starring Armie Hammer as the masked hero and Johnny Depp as Tonto, will open July 3rd. A special 8 p.m. sneak preview of the movie will take place at the Oxford 7 Theater, 48 South Washington Street, on Tuesday, July 2nd. The engagement is limited to 259 seats, and tickets will be sold exclusively as part of an ongoing fundraising effort to erect a Lone Ranger statue in town. Details regarding ticket sales are still being worked out, and information will be released once everything is settled. Oxford will host a Lone Ranger-themed parade along M24 on Saturday, August 3rd, beginning at 11 a.m. An Oxford-based Lone Ranger website has been created and can be found at www.homeofthemask.com.
Hi, I'm Ken LaPlace, director of OCTV, and I bet you're wondering why I'm dressed like this. Well, I'm dressed like this because many years ago I used to be a police officer. But there's another reason I'm dressed like this, and that's to tell you about a very special day coming up on May 11th, and that's called Police Day at OCTV. And that very special day, we pay tribute to police officers all over the area, and it allows you, the public, to come in and meet them and talk with them. It's going to be a great time because we're going to have bands, we're going to have free food, we're going to have exhibits, and we're going to have all kinds of things for kids to do. Like, for example, they can wear police gear and police uniform like this riot control helmet to have a good time. They'll be able to play with handcuffs and put handcuffs on and have a lot of fun with that and a lot of other different ways that with things that police officers have. But it's also another very special day because it's a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser for an organization called Living Legends. And Living Legends is an organization that is locally based, and what they do is they help police officers who are in need, police officers who are sick or injured, and including their families. And by coming there, and if you decide to make a donation, then all of the money 100%, goes to Living Legends. Now, the event is totally free, so keep in mind, we want you to come and have a good time. If you decide to contribute, fine. There's another way you can contribute as well. You see this little badge here. This is a badge that's a paper badge that you can get at your local dealer, grocery store or restaurant. Some select sponsors have these, and we've decided to give them for the public to buy. It's $1, and for $1, you can help a police officer or a police officer's family. So remember, folks, this is a very, very special time, and it comes during a very, very special time of the year. It's National Police Week. So let's all come together, let's support the officers, and come on down to OCTV for Police Day.
Well, if this were a math test in school, it would be one heck of a story problem. If two villages combine their dispatch centers into one, how much money will this consolidation save each of them, and will it be enough for one of them to keep a customer? Last week, the Oxford Village Council voted 3-1 to authorize manager Joe Young to work with interim Lake Orion Village manager Darwin McClary on a joint dispatch services proposal for Orion Township. This proposal was presented to the Orion Township Board on Monday, May 6th. In a nutshell, Lake Orion is proposing closing its dispatch center and housing its operations and employees in Oxford's dispatch center. The two villages would then share the cost of operating a joint center. It's proposed that two dispatchers, one from Lake Orion and one from Oxford, would begin working side by side in the center 24/7 on January 1st, 2014. Although they'd work in the same center, the dispatchers would draw paychecks and benefits from the village for which they work. It should be noted that neither village council has given approval for this consolidation proposal. It's anticipated that doing this would allow Lake Orion to save $52,873 annually, according to McClary, who based this on an analysis completed by the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments in July 2012. This savings would allow Lake Orion to cut its price in half for dispatching Orion Township's fire and EMS calls. Currently, Lake Orion is charging Orion Township $91,800 annually for dispatch services under a contract that expires December 31st. Orion subsidizes a good portion of Lake Orion's $273,000 dispatch center budget, of which $177,000 is derived from the village's general fund and $3,956 from 911 phone revenues. Under its joint proposal with Oxford, Lake Orion would charge approximately $46,000 beginning January 1st, 2014, or $24.96 per call based on 1,837 calls annually. A 2% increase is proposed for each year after that. Lake Orion is hoping this discount will make it more competitive with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, which has submitted a proposal to Orion Township for dispatching its fire and EMS calls. It's really the village of Lake Orion giving up a substantial portion of its cost savings we were going to see to make it affordable for Orion Township to stay with us, said McClary, who noted his village may still realize a net savings of about $6,000 annually. The Sheriff's Department is also proposing to charge $24.96 a call, and that price would increase to $24.46 on April 1st of 2014. Based on an annual call volume of 1,735 calls, which is a 3-year average for the Orion Township Fire Department, the township could pay $10,826 for the first 3 months of 2014. Then from April 1st to March 31st, 2015, the cost will be $44,173. County dispatch rates have historically risen by an average of 2 to 3% per year. McClary made it quite clear to Oxford's council that Lake Orion needs to retain Orion Township as a dispatch customer, or the village's days of providing local dispatch services are finished. If we're not able to keep Orion Township on board with our dispatching services, if they decide to go at some point with county, that's going to put Lake Orion in a situation where we're going to have to get out of the dispatching business. We're going to end up being a customer with someone else. We may contract with the village of Oxford to provide these services, or we may have to go to Auburn Hills or somewhere else, he told council. McClary said if Lake Orion loses Orion Township as a customer, the village would not be able to recover from that revenue loss. It's simply going to price us out of being able to provide our own local dispatching, he told Oxford's council. Unless we were able to come up with a difference in funding to be able to do it ourselves, based on the village's financial situation, I just don't see that as an option right now. It appears all this effort was for naught, because at the Monday, May 6th Orion Township Board meeting, officials voted 7-0 to terminate the contract with Lake Orion for fire and dispatch services. The Orion Board then voted 6-1 to authorize the Township Supervisor to negotiate with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department for dispatch services. Well, it seems like the whole world is going paperless these days, and the Addison Township Fire Department is no exception. Thanks to a $6,163 grant from the 4-County Community Foundation, Addison would be able to purchase all the equipment necessary to electronically fill out, file, and submit reports regarding patients they transport to the hospital. We definitely want to thank the 4-County Community Foundation for giving us a favorable review and awarding us this grant, said Assistant Fire Chief John Beach. We weren't sure how it was going to go, but they were really helpful, the Assistant Chief said. Based in Almont, the 4-County Community Foundation provides grants to communities and schools in Oakland, Lapeer, Macomb, and St. Clair counties. Established in 1987, the foundation's awarded more than $6.5 million in grants. Last year alone, it awarded 253 grants, totaling $284,000. To this grant, the fire department will be adding matching funds of $745 in order to buy 2 Toughbook laptop computers, 2 charging stations, and 2 printers. 1 set will go in each of Addison's 2 ambulances. Right now, unlike most public and private providers of emergency medical services, Addison still uses patient care reports that are paper, which must be filled out and submitted to the hospital whenever someone is transported there. Doing these reports electronically instead of on paper will save the department time, money, and help ensure better medical care for patients because legible documents lead to fewer errors and misunderstandings. This was the Addison Department's 2nd grant this year. The first one was for over $60,000 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. It was earmarked for 2 12-lead electrocardiogram monitor/defibrillator units. And finally, A bit of Kentucky landed in Metamora Township Saturday as Banbury Cross Therapeutic Equestrian Center hosted its 23rd annual Derby Day fundraiser. Centered around the 139th running of the Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Banbury's event featured silent and live auctions, chances to pick the Derby's winning horse, a parade featuring some of Banbury's horses, and a fabulous dinner. Banbury director Jessica Moore said it was the most successful Derby Day ever as the event raised $98,000. A total of 230 people were in attendance. Well, that's all the news that fits in the Oxford Leader this week. Join us again next week.
Hi, I'm Ken LaPlace, director of OCTV, and I bet you're wondering why I'm dressed like this. Well, I'm dressed like this because many years ago I used to be a police officer. But there's another reason I'm dressed like this, and that's to tell you about a very special day coming up on May 11th, and that's called Police Day at OCTV. And that very special day, we pay tribute to police officers all over the area, and it allows you, the public, to come in and meet them and talk with them. It's going to be a great time because we're going to have bands, we're going to have free food, we're going to have exhibits, and we're going to have all kinds of things for kids to do. Like, for example, they can wear police gear and police uniform like this riot control helmet to have a good time. They'll be able to play with handcuffs and put handcuffs on and have a lot of fun with that and a lot of other different ways that with things that police officers have. But it's also another very special day because it's a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser for an organization called Living Legends. And Living Legends is an organization that is locally based, and what they do is they help police officers who are in need, police officers who are sick or injured, and including their families. And by coming there, and if you decide to make a donation, then all of the money 100%, goes to Living Legends. Now, the event is totally free, so keep in mind, we want you to come and have a good time. If you decide to contribute, fine. There's another way you can contribute as well. You see this little badge here. This is a badge that's a paper badge that you can get at your local dealer, grocery store or restaurant. Some select sponsors have these, and we've decided to give them for the public to buy. It's $1, and for $1, you can help a police officer or a police officer's family. So remember, folks, this is a very, very special time, and it comes during a very special time of the year. It's National Police Week. So let's all come together, let's support the officers, and come on down to OCTV for Police Day.
Hi, I'm Monique Max. I'm the executive producer at OCTV studio here in Oxford. Now, I want you to bring your family and especially those kids and join me on May 11th when we're going to have Police Officers Appreciation at the TV station. Now, kids can come in and use these handcuffs, dress up in these riot hats, and maybe put on a bulletproof vest. But the most important thing we're doing is raising money for Living Legends. So look for these shields around town for $1 and buy one, and join me on May 11th at the studio, 10 to 2.
The young people of our nation are our future. They benefit from exceptional programs and generous scholarships that only the American Legion offers. We provide athletic programs like American Legion Junior Shooting Sports, Legion Baseball, and educational and civics programs like the Oratorical Scholarship Contest and Boys State and Boys Nation.
As Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black stated, the quality of justice that Americans receive should not depend upon the amount of money they have.
We promote citizenship and an appreciation of government. We have all been directly involved in our nation's defense as wartime veterans. We know what policies, tools, and manpower our military needs to protect this great country. We fight to get these things done.
We're all very grateful to have the American Legion on point.
We take our case all the way to the top in Washington, D.C. to ensure that America is prepared for any threat. We are patriots through and through. We believe in our flag and all that it stands for. Our Constitution, our Pledge of Allegiance, our way of life are all fundamental to maintaining our freedom and the standing that we have as the greatest country on earth. We promote and defend these values every day in communities across the nation. These pillars represent not just what we do, but who we are. We're here to serve our fellow veterans, their families, and all of America. We are here for them. We are here for you. The American Legion asks you to join us in our mission. If you share our vision and commitment to America, Visit our website at legion.org or your nearest American Legion post today.